It is an uncomfortable feeling for the SEC, but it is a reality this morning. The Big Ten, quote, at the moment, owns college football. That was our buddy Paul Finebaum doing his declarative statement after the national championship game, a win for Ohio State over Notre Dame. And I don't know. So a couple of different things here. First of all, a lot of times we get these declarative statements. I'm old enough to remember. I'm old enough to remember Trevor Lawrence was never going to lose a college football game after the 2018 national championship when he was a freshman. He never won the national championship after that. This is just sort of stuff that happens after national championship games. People do what they do. The SEC has done a great job over this century of getting the job done in terms of winning it all. And Ohio State and Michigan have both won the national championship from the Big Ten. I don't at all think that Ohio State, well, here's where I'm going to go with this. Ohio State, like Georgia, Alabama, LSU, Texas, Florida, there are certain programs in the country that just should win the national championship. Ohio State is definitely one of those people. I would say Michigan is, but I'm not sure if I see that in the near future for Michigan. But okay, you get what I'm going with. This is, after a while, if you don't win it, it's kind of failure on your part more than, you string together a couple and you, quote, own college football. I mean, they may be leasing it more than anything. I mean, I don't think we should be so declarative in such a turbulent time in college football. And this is, people are going to take this as me like running Ohio State down. No, they did exactly what they were supposed to do, period. You forget the Michigan, just with the exception of the loss to Michigan. They literally did everything they were supposed to do. What, they lost to Oregon on the road by a point? Please. They won at home against a pretty good Tennessee. Not a elite Tennessee team, but a good team. A team that Georgia beat by 17 or whatever it was. I think it was 17. They beat them by by worse than that, but you get my point. Georgia beat them by 14. Golly. For 31-17. But that's a good Tennessee defense. Tennessee's got some changes coming up this season. They did that. But really, it was the Rose Bowl, to me, that really elevated what Ohio State did. I mean, that was a great win over Oregon. Okay, Oregon, who now I think has the same questions coming into 2025 that Ohio State did coming into 2024, which is, are you going to win it or not? And I think that's not a lot of fun to be painted into that corner, but that's kind of where we're at. The other thing is too, so far, the addition of Oregon and the addition of Oregon to the Big Ten, the addition of Texas to the SEC have sort of washed out. The difference between the SEC and the Big Ten, of course, is that they've got the three other teams that they added to the SEC's one, which is SC, UCLA, and UW, to the SEC's Oklahoma, who just, that's not working right now. And it's not working at UCLA. It's not working at USC. It's not working at Washington. But I will say this, at least UW played for the national championship a season ago. I mean, Oklahoma, it's been a while. So in terms of who owns college football, I would say the big guys own it. And I don't think that's really anything new. I mean, the last time a little guy, if you want to call it that, won it was Clemson. And they would argue to you that they are big guys. I would not say that they are at all the same as, Georgia, Ohio State, etc. in terms of, market size, in terms of audience appeal, in terms of all those things. In terms of winning, they did a great job of that. But I would not confuse Clemson with Ohio State, even though they sure did whip Ohio State's ass a few times back, not lately. I mean, I think they've beaten them solidly 3 times in the last, since 2013. I was at the first one. I'm not saying I couldn't believe it, but that was a great win for Clemson. Declarative statements after national championships. I mean, the whole summer, and this is what will happen this summer. The whole summer of 23, going into 23, The whole summer was about Georgia three-peating. Now, that was a lot, and I don't know that it necessarily built up steam during the season, but they did go 12-0, and you're like, oh my gosh, yeah, they can repeat, whatever it's called. Well, they didn't get in. They were the better team. They were the best team in the league, and they didn't win the conference championship game. And in the scenario that at that time, you just didn't get in. Well, Ohio State didn't even play for their conference championship this year. They got in, and they were the best team in the country, and they didn't win their conference or play for their conference. They were the third best team in their conference according to standings. All right, and so to some degree, it was circumstantial. Just straight up. I mean, if Georgia gets in the championship in the playoff a season ago, they probably win the national championship. They left that one on the table. Ohio State wasn't going to leave this on the table. That's where they need to be given credit, is the path that they had. This was, first of all, this was a great run, okay? Notre Dame might have been their easiest game in terms of matchups. I mean, like, what they did to Tennessee, they got, that was... But I didn't know that they'd beat Tennessee. I didn't know that they beat Oregon. I picked them. I picked them to beat Tennessee. I don't think I picked them to cover against Tennessee. I picked them to beat that one. I picked them to beat Oregon. The Texas game, they should have won that game. They did. It was a road game. But I had no doubt about the Notre Dame game. They were clearly better than Notre Dame, and they did what they had to do. Notre Dame didn't score a non-offensive touchdown. Notre Dame didn't get 2 turnovers. They got 1, and it just wasn't enough. And and it is what it is. But I think we've got to get used to, there are going to be powers in this sport. If you're watching this, you love college football. This is not going to be like the past. We're not going to see. This is a bad example. South Carolina is not going to rise up and win the national championship. I will boil this bottle cap and eat it in a stew if South Carolina wins the national championship this coming year. They won't do it. Now, they'll get a lot of discussion and hype and all of that. They got beat by Illinois, okay? And among other teams. So you got to win 4 straight games, or 3 in some cases. I mean, that's going to be really challenging for people who are not the big guys. This is going to become more like NASCAR, and here's what I mean by that. Anybody in NASCAR in the 30-plus races can win a race. Anybody can win a game. Like, Vanderbilt beat Alabama. Vanderbilt nearly beat Texas. I mean, they played them very hard. Vanderbilt was 6-6, 7-6 at the end of the day. Vanderbilt was not great. They were fine, okay? You'd have thought with all the hype after the Alabama game that, like, people were like, oh my gosh, Vanderbilt's really good. And then it's like Carolina went up there and thumped them. Like, no. So anybody can win a race, but the Hendrick teams, it's those higher level, the Gibbs, Hendricks, like, if you're from front row, like, you're probably not winning the championship. That's probably where we're going with college football. Anybody that's a Hendrick car or maybe a Gibbs car can go win it. Very specifically, anybody that's a Hendrick car can go do it. But the Hendrick cars in this case are not necessarily all from the same league, but they are the blue bloods of the sport. They are the, in basketball terms, they are Kentucky, Kansas, UConn, Duke, Carolina. It's that group, okay? And now in today's sport, it is certainly Ohio State, right? Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia, Texas. Lately, it would be that group. I would say LSU, to me, yes. Florida should be, sure. Can Florida State get it back? I mean, I don't know. But, that's where we're going here. So the notion that a league is going to control this, for all of the drum beating from the Southeastern Conference, it really started in, 2010. But for all of the drum beating, there's only been, they're going to get this grief. The SEC is going to get this grief, and they'll probably win the national championship in basketball. But, when you thump your chest that many times, the Big Ten folks are going to let you know. And that's what's going on right now. But if I were anybody trying to be Nostradamus and all of this. We don't know what the future is with this thing right now. Like, it's not so clear like it once was. I'm also old enough to remember that only Alabama and Clemson were going to, be the power teams, and even that didn't last very long. So, with the change in the sport, with the transient nature of players, with the money, with the exposure, with guys like, he may have declared by now, but like Quinshon Judkins was a great running back at Ole Miss. He was really good at Ohio State. He helped win them he helped them win the national championship Monday night. It may not make sense for him to go to the NFL. It may not make sense for Quinshon Judkins to go to the NFL because it may make sense for them to pay him, $3 million for 1 year, okay, to stick around at Ohio State. Say, hey, we'll pay you $3 million, and you can delay your NFL career by a year, and you get $3 million for it. There's no guarantee that you'll play in the NFL for very long. We can guarantee you $3 million. That's the sort of stuff. Or Notre Dame could, in all of their, jibber jabber, could get him to go to Notre Dame, But academic standards are some dumb thing that they talk about. I mean, come on, y'all. So there's just it's so unlevel. What I mean by unlevel is it's hard to know what the future will be with all of this stuff. And so I just think we have entered a different time. I don't know that it's conference based. I mean, I have to say, and this is just going off the top of my head, that in the last 15 years, 2 teams from the Big Ten have won the national championship, and 2 of those wins came in the last 2 seasons. Okay, 15 years. 2 teams from the ACC have won it in the last 15 years, and those wins have not come in the last 5 years. Okay, so Florida State and Clemson twice. And then you look at the SEC, and you've had Georgia, Alabama, LSU in the last 5 years have won it, and then Auburn in 2010. So, one of these things is not like the other. If we are going to do that, one of these things is not like the other. And, I know Auburn beat Oregon, and Oregon has since gone on, to be a really good program under Dan. But, Florida's not going to be bad forever. LSU's not going to be bad forever. I mean, Tennessee could get it together. Texas is in the SEC now. I don't think Texas is going to, that's hard to say that still, but it's true. So, this league is not without its power brokers. They just didn't win it this year, and they didn't win it last year. I don't think that, I think you can't be so naive to say, this is over, or, they own it or whatever. That's not how this really works. That's what you do when you want a reaction. But, it's not necessarily based in reality. But that's, we are in outrage porn season, and which is the next 6 months, and that's what, well, it's all the time actually, but that's what we'll do. And I just, I think Ohio State could win it any year. Okay, I think they pretty much consistently prove that. Georgia could win it any year. I think they've pretty much kind of proven that lately. Michigan can't win it every single year. They won it last year. I thought we could always say Alabama could win it any year. They cannot win it this year. That just was not going to happen. So it may just be the power brokers go up and down. The league part of it, like Wisconsin doesn't get credit for Ohio State's win any more than LSU got credit for Georgia's in 2022. So that sort of stuff. I mean, the SEC is the best league in the country. We can have this discussion about who the best team is. It's Ohio State. But who is the best league? It's the SEC. And, prove me wrong. What, you're going to talk about Ohio State and Penn State? Like, what's Penn State's best win again? Right? I mean, in Indiana, like, we got it. We also, one last thing here, too. Just generally speaking, we've got to get away from heading into this thing. The number 1 team in the country was Oregon. The number 2 team in the country was Georgia. The number 3 team in the country was Notre Dame. Notre Dame and Georgia played in the quarterfinals. We got to stop that. Like the way that this is going, that's not going to work, man. They don't need to be, these things need to be like Texas should have played in the national championship game. I'll just tell you that right now. That Ohio State-Texas game, that should not have occurred when it did. Ohio State should not be playing Oregon in a quarterfinal. That should not be happening. But, we're at where we're at. We've got to get through this next year, and then hopefully the powers that be will use some sense. And I'll say this to the teams, to the leagues that are going to try to enforce their will in the short term here. Y'all's asses are going to get cut out if you don't play ball the right way. And, the Big Ten and the SEC are the power brokers. There's a reason why they are. Because they have the best teams. And they can do this without y'all. It's the days of, we're going to decide the national championship at the Citrus Bowl. That's gone. It's all like this. And you can either get in line with it or you can get left out. It's going to be one of the two. Thanks for watching.